Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. I'm your host, Bernadette, and joining me today is Leslie, all the way from Spain. How are you?
I am fabulous. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, of course. It's always my pleasure to share.
Yeah. So, Leslie, can you tell us more about you and the work that you do?
Of course. So I really like to lead that I am a selfless overachiever in recovery. Someone who is always strapping on oxygen masks for other people or making sure everybody was always happy before I ever pleased my own self, pretty much for the majority of my own life. And that is really who I am at a core, but now really rewiring that I wholly embrace and accept myself. And because of that, I became a registered dietitian and a personal trainer because one of the biggest reasons why I became a selfless overachiever was due to being told I was fat at 15 years old by my high school softball coach and another girl in the class who told me I couldn't hang out with her for it. So it was very disheartening. And at 15, that's when I decided that I was going to do everything to no longer be that person. So I did a lot of diets. Actually, left high school a lot heavier than I was.
Mhm.
I purposely got straight A's. I don't know if anybody has ever seen Modern Family, but in Modern Family, when Alex, the middle daughter, has her massive breakdown, I feel like that should have been me because I definitely was. If you would have seen my planner when I was 15 years old, I had everything, every single chunk of my day. Like, I'm going to drive home at this time. I'm going to get home at this time. I'm going to work out at this time. I'm going to do this. Everything was to the T. And when I could save a minute or two, I was really proud of myself.
Mm.
So just those small pieces that really led me into becoming this very meticulous person. And weight was the one thing I couldn't seem to conquer. I started to try a lot of diets. I did all those things in high school, and I actually gained about 25 pounds, which actually made me unhealthy. I was at a normal, healthy BMI when I first started school, but I wasn't skinny. I wasn't super skinny. So
Mhm.
I decided to become a dietitian and a personal trainer, and that did not help, actually. I just wound up being able to cycle on and off the same amount of pounds, had an eating disorder, all of the things that you can kind of have in there. And I'm 39, so it's just really awesome to be, well, I'm about to be 39. I turned 39 in 13 days. So by the time this podcast goes out, I'll probably be 39.
Oh,
But
nice.
uh, I at 29 really started to reevaluate my life, and I broke up with my fiance at the time and really reframed and started to develop the digestion codes unknowingly. And now through education, becoming an entrepreneur, I realized that I discovered something back in the beginning, late 20s, early 30s, that I now help women do, which is really uncover what's happening in them, why they have all these boxes they have to check, why health has to be this big thing, why their body controls them so much, and allow them to understand what's happening on the inside so they can start to actually be free and break through the guilt and the shame and the sacrifice they're making in their life. So,
Mm. Wow. Thank you for sharing. And
thanks.
I want to thank you for the person you are and the woman that you are, and for empowering women through your own experience. May I say you're not alone in what you experienced. And it's unfortunate. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I think it made you the person that you are today. It's the society that we live in. It's awful, isn't it? Especially for young kids that are going to school, a place where they need to learn, go to learn, and they experience those kind of very harsh environments. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. I want to recognize um, the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Without it, I truthfully wouldn't be who I was today. You know, people have asked, do you wish you could go back and take certain things back? No, because I don't know that without those, I would be the person that I am today. Even the hardships and the things that in the moment you want to get past, those speedy things that happen that you're like, I was like, you'll feel better once you're on the other side. And you're like, I understand that, but I'm in it. I'm in it. Like, I'm swimming in it. I'm
Yeah.
drowning in it. The mud is everywhere. And I totally get it. So,
Yeah. And happy early birthday.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Are you excited for it? Are you doing something special for yourself?
Technically, we're leaving to go out of town before it. My birthday happens to be on a Tuesday, and a holiday weekend in the United States falls the weekend before. So we're going to go to, I live in Spain, like you said, we're going to go to Tenerife, which is a part of the Canary Islands. So I'm excited. I'm stoked. I'm like, sounds like a great, we take a lot of fun vacations here to travel and explore, and this one will be more like rest and restore
Mhm.
with our kids and with ourselves. So I'm super excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So what was your childhood like? I know you tell us a bit about your, high school experience. Other than that, what was it like? Was it a nurturing environment for you?
It's a great question. I would start with yes. I mean, my parents definitely did everything they could do in their power with the knowledge they had at their time, right?
Mhm.
And so I do truly believe my parents did everything the best that they possibly could for us in every way. I think the things that really halted me were mostly from people outside of me. One of the things that I remember most from growing up was the next door neighbor's mom. She drove us to and from school every single day. Well, she drove us from school every day. My dad drove us to school every day in grade school. And I played with their youngest son, who was a year younger than me, and the only person that would play with me. My older sisters were 5 and 3 years older. I was always the one on the outside. So he was the one next door that would play with me. But I always had to go to his house. I always had to play at his house. It was always his thing. If I didn't want to play what he wanted to play, I would get told, go home. If you don't want to play what my son wants to play, then you go home. And I think I was about 5 when I got accused of no longer flushing toilets at their house. She
Mhm.
said, "You're not flushing the toilet at my house, so you're not allowed to use our toilet." And it wasn't me, it was her son, but it didn't matter. It was me in her mind. And I just said, okay. And I was over there playing with him one day, and like little kids play, we were playing and we were tickling and whatever. And I really had to go to the bathroom. And I went to go use the bathroom in the house. And she literally stopped me, like as I was mid about to go to the bathroom. And she was like, I told you, you cannot use our bathroom. And so I ran home.
Mhm.
And obviously at 5 years old, even though it was across the street, I didn't make it. But I was embarrassed because I don't have mistakes at that age, right? Like it was something that I felt very embarrassed with.
Mhm.
And I'd really probably say that that's the beginning of where I started to struggle with self-worth. But I didn't understand that because I didn't even get to use somebody's bathroom.
Mhm.
And I think that snowballed really when I was 7 or 8. I don't know if it was before or after my birthday because I know it was in fallish, winterish in the Catholic school I was in. But I had a teacher who said, we were coming back to go to confession. It was Tuesday, I think, and we had to come back at like 6 or 7 p.m. So it was like, when you come back and you sit down in your Catholic confession, you have something to confess. You have been a sinner for 7 or 8 years of your life.
Oh my.
Remember everything. Don't pretend you don't have anything. And I remember going home for 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours, being so uneasy. Like, I got to remember all this. I don't want to be punished. I don't want to be sent to hell. I don't want to have all these things. I'm going to die.
Mhm.
And I remember going and him giving my penance to me and going back to the pew and doing what he told me to do and feeling no different. And so I was like, well, I'm still a sinner. And so I really think that these two things really led me to it. And neither were my parents, more so the church and the next door neighbor.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, well, your parents could have been more intuitive or things like that. I was like, I wasn't taught in 1980, 1990. It wasn't something we taught about. Back then there was still tons of, sexual trauma and things like that happening among little kids that just never got put out there. It was because it wasn't a thing. And now it's completely different.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Thank you for
yeah,
sharing. Yeah, so much to unpack. We'll talk about
exactly.
religion. Religion. My gosh, I got washed pretty good, and I now I rebel. I choose what I believe, not what people say. What is your outlook on religion versus, how it was passed and pushed on to you, as a child?
That's a great question. I think like Inside Out 2, really, if anybody's ever
Oh,
seen
I
Inside
love
Out 2,
that.
I I truthfully the ending of that, like I loved how they talked about the beliefs and they showed them in the very beginning. And they showed how joy was like throwing the memories to the back of the head. And then in the end, everything came back, right? It was like no matter what you wanted to avoid, it all got planted in that subconscious mind, which is truthful. Like we don't really have people up there. It's all getting planted, good, bad, the ugly, right?
Yeah.
As these beliefs, and that she gets to choose her sense of self in the end, right?
Mhm.
And you would think, based on that sinner thing, I would have veered away from Catholicism, but I didn't. It
Mhm.
was like, well, this is what my parents do. I'm going to stay rooted in it. And then when I got to high school and I wasn't really accepted, I went the gaudy route because I was, the odd one out. And my youth minister at the time, I remember him and I got very close to a point my parents felt very uncomfortable. Nothing happened or anything, but
Mhm.
he taught me that other people could touch me, but I could not touch myself. And I remember that being another very big belief. So I've learned from my Catholic religion that, God is keeping score. He's got a scorecard. If I do it wrong, I'm going to be in trouble, right? So I got a scorecard.
Mhm.
I'm a sinner. I'm never going to be forgiven because that first time I went to confession just wasn't there. I'm not allowed to touch myself. And I would say that was very evident in my 20s and 30s, 20s and beginnings of 30s, because I basically allowed my self-worth to be dictated on the things that I was taught, right? I was taught that things that make you worthy is losing a bunch of weight and being skinny because people talk about you in a positive way, having a good job or making a lot of money. Both are the same, or vice versa. Okay. That makes a lot of money. To be honest, the harder you worked and the more money you made, the better you were talked about. If it was easy for you, you were talked about in a derogatory way, right?
Mhm.
And that was good for my own awareness right there. And then the other thing that I really think that self-worth was on was like if you had a boyfriend, if you were married, if you were getting engaged or whatever, those were the things that the worth came from. So my driving force was stay out of being caught as a sinner and make sure that you get these three things.
Mhm.
And between religion, the people I knew growing up in religion, people I knew growing up in church, that was it. And I actually was never in a serious relationship with a Catholic man before, but both of my ex-fiance and then my current husband,
Mhm.
we all agreed that we would raise the kids Catholic. And I got them into Catholicism. I did the thing. And it was shortly after that moment that I realized once I became hip to the thought process of universal laws and things, that I was merely following what I had known all along. And I remember going to church one day, I think in 2021, and with my son and my daughter and my husband, and going, what did I gain from this?
Mhm.
I gained all the things I'm doing wrong. I sat here and I listened. I came as listening to my parents, as still listening to all of those people, going through the motions. And I'm Catholic because I say I am, but I don't believe in half of the stuff they tell me.
Mhm.
And that's when I just went, I'm not really Catholic. What do I
Mhm.
really believe in? And so at that moment, I really just stopped all religion and just prayed. I interchanged it, God, universe, spirit, whatever I felt like.
Mhm.
And now, really in the past week, I have processed that I do believe in a God. I do believe in God. That's who I talk to. When I think of God, I am strongly rooted in God, but in the God that I believe in now, not the God that I was taught to believe in.
Mhm.
And we have two children that would have been their last day in church, maybe a few times with my parents in 2022, but that was it. I haven't really educated. And my daughter went to a traditional school last year here in Spain, and they teach religion. And she got outstandings in everything but religion. She just got acceptable. And I was like, and that's why I don't want her taught religion, because that should be outstanding. You're a child of God. You
Yeah.
are a product of the universe. You have spirit inside of you. You have God inside of you. We should all have outstandings, no
Mhm.
matter if we know every story in the Bible or not. If we believe and we can let go and let God, let it be. That's really my thought process. And that's how I teach them. We pray to God multiple times a day when we're good moments, bad moments, all the things, we let it go. And
Mhm.
and that's where I think I want them to be, not a
Yeah.
smiting God of keeping score. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I think so many people can relate to your story, whether it's with religion or anything else you've shared. Definitely, with people pleasing. I think
mm-hmm.
it's how we get molded very young. We're taught if you don't do what I want, then something's wrong with you. And it's just all those beliefs that we carry on throughout our lives. And then adulthood, we're like, who am I? Who am I? Because who am I without this person's opinion? Who am I without what my parents taught me or what they believe? And I guess it's dismantling those beliefs and digging deep to find who we are and our identity. And it's a lifelong journey. And because so many of us, we walk around and we're not ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't recognize who we are. We're just going with the floor and fitting in, um, just to not be left out. Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What would you say to women, even men, who have experienced very similar things that you've experienced?
I think what you said, really ask yourself what you want to believe and what you don't. If somebody were to ask me by default, like, what's your religion? And it's like, they've asked me 12 questions, like, what's your name? What's your height? What's your weight? What's your whatever? What's your religion? I'd be like, Catholic, right?
Yeah.
But that's just by default. It comes out like, water pouring out of the faucet hose because it's what I've been for so long. But when the question comes on a piece of paper, I'm like, I don't know that I really truly have one because I
Mhm.
don't have that. But I've chosen that, right? My religion is to believe in God. And I think that that's really the true part. You have to get back to the root of yourself, of choosing what you want to believe, who you want to be, how you want to be it, and where you want to accept yourself. I tell my parents all the time, I teach my children about God. Well, you should bring them to church. I understand that's your idea. That's not my idea. I
Mhm.
don't think they have to go to church. And if they choose to go to church, I want them to choose at an age they're consciously aware of what they're choosing, and I will allow them to do so. They will be allowed to experiment with whatever. I went to plenty of different churches. And now that I think about it, I was so closed-minded because my religion was the right religion, but for no other reason that I was taught it, not because it is,
Mhm.
just because that's what I was taught. And I think because you talked about, choosing your own beliefs, I really lean on the laws of the universe to help me now and determine like what's the truth about this. My firm belief is that every time you talk about energy, God, spirit, consciousness, any one of the religions and their top leader, you're talking about the same thing. We just have different stories. It's just where you were growing up. It's just who you are. I mean, literally, we're all looking for the same thing. It's just, were you born in Austin, Texas? Were you born in Israel? Were you born in someplace else, And where you were born really dictates those things. Just like Inside Out, really shows you is that that's just what was wired in you. And now you get to come into your own self-awareness. And just like she does in the end, transform your view of your own self.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really awesome movie. We've watched it a few times, and there's so many impactful messages in there, even for adults, right? Yeah, so tell us, why do you think people think that health is outside of them versus, inside?
Totally, because we're taught that, right? We are taught that I go outside for my answers, even from a young age, right? I'm sick, I go to a doctor.
Mhm.
I'm told when I get to eat, I'm told when I get to drink, I'm told when I get to go to the bathroom, I'm told all of these things, right? I don't get to have my own autonomy, right? I have to do what other people tell me. I'm at school, I don't get to have water, I don't get to go to the bathroom when I want to go to the bathroom. And so I start looking outside of me and people tell me when I get to go. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, that's really, then for diets, it's the same thing. Okay, I'm not losing weight, so I need to go and we call them lifestyle changes. I love that word. It's so not true. You're
Yeah.
not changing your lifestyle. You are not changing your lifestyle. You are being dictated what you're supposed to eat. Eat
Mhm.
this, not that. Follow this plan, not this plan. Do this, do this. And none of them is taking into account what's really happening on the inside. Have you ever even heard, is your body hungry? Is your body thirsty? Does your body need this? Does your body want this? It's talking to you at all the times.
Mhm.
But we were talked to like that when we were a baby. As a baby, what do? We were hungry, so we cried.
Yeah.
Mom checked our diaper first, so we cry more. Okay, mom burped us. Okay, so we cry more. Okay, mom's like, I guess they need to eat again. So then we get food, right? If we're raised in that kind of environment. Gabor Mate, he's one of the people that talks about how his mom was taught he had to only eat every 4 hours. So he would starve as a baby, and she would write about this. she'd write about it in a journal. I'm so sorry you are starving. I know you need food, but the doctor tells me this is what I have to do. And
Mm,
so we're educated that something outside of us is the answer when we're born with an internal code. When we're born, that's why we cry when we're hungry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That,
And we are talked out of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's so powerful because obviously I respect doctors and what they do, but I think at the end of the day, we are the expert of our bodies, and we know our bodies better than anyone else, right? Yeah, I'm interested to hear what is the digestion code? What is that?
Yeah, so it is something that I created through what I do. It's really four pieces. One is your internal code. It's very much like a Myers-Briggs kind of test, right? Where you can get some tangible points, some feedback about what you feels good to you. I have yet to have anybody learn this and be like, wow, that totally resonates. But I've always talked myself out of it for whatever reason. And really like the nuts and bolts of ways that you can change it. Unfortunately, just like Inside Out shows you, you cannot stop there because when given a piece of paper solution, we as humans aren't connected to it,
Mhm.
right? We're not connected to the piece of paper. Even a marriage license, I mean, right? We're not connected to the piece of paper. The piece of paper legally bonds us, but we can walk away at any point, right?
Mhm.
So the thought process goes down to this place of what the next step really is finding out where you're sabotaging yourself because you are sabotaging yourself
Mhm.
because your set point in your weight is a certain area. And when you veer outside of that, you're going into these places that are not normal for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then your body will bring you back, right? So we find your sabotage. And then the next thing we do is kind of find that inner negative voice that's talking to you. All the rules, all the regulations, all the things you have to follow. I have to eat at this time. I have to drink at this time. That's a good food. That's a bad food. Um, I'm a binge eater.
Mhm.
If I'm binge eating, then what am I saying to myself? What's really happening? There's so many patterns and programs and things that go in there that are part of your digestion code. Those two pieces overrun piece number one. So even though you have it, it's just like everybody knows the steps to keto. Everybody knows the steps to intermittent fasting. You can Google those and find them out,
Yeah.
right? Then if they work so efficiently, why aren't we all super skinny, right?
Mhm.
Because nobody's going to this route. And if I go back to that self-worth that I was talking about in the beginning and those things that really dictated it, so many women are driven by the fact that the number on their scale dictates if they're worthy that day or not. And we were trained that. And so if the scale tells us something negative, that sets our entire day up to remain in our non-controlled bubble.
Yeah.
So even if I knew the code, I'm not going to succeed. Even if I know the diet plan, I'm not going to succeed because I'm literally sitting here in this negative vibration, hating my body, hating the scale, hating how I feel, tormenting myself, making myself feel worse,
Mhm.
right? And so the digestion code really helps to pull those things out to uncover where you're actually sabotaging yourself. And
Mhm.
then you get to choose. That's the most defined thing. Most women, men, etc., who get to the end are like, wow, I don't have to follow anything. The weight is just falling off. Yes,
Mhm.
because it's not actually your set point. That's not your set point. Your set point is actually lower. But all these other things were causing you to be somewhere else. And then really the fourth piece is you wholly being yourself, embracing yourself.
Mhm.
And the days that you do feel worse in your body, because you are always, unless you eat 100% perfect every single day, you'll have a day where you feel a little bit less. And even then, flu, coughs, chills, things that just happen in your life, there
Mhm.
are days that we just don't feel 100% ourselves. And those are the days that can now just be like, this is just a day.
Mhm.
Instead of this is the day that it's all going to be bad. I can't believe I binge ate that. One of my favorite clients lost 60 pounds during menopause. Never even heard her say the word menopause to me, but she lost 60 pounds during menopause, a time when most women say all you can do is gain. And you know what her most proud thing is that she can eat and drink and live her life without shame and guilt. She's like, I don't hold it against myself anymore.
Mhm.
Whereas before I would sit in that for years and days and months. It was terrible.
Mhm.
And that's really what the digestion code gets to.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I like that you're taking people on a journey on the inside to discover who they are. because we look on the outside for everything really when it's inside of us. And some of us, we don't have the courage yet, or we don't necessarily know how to reach inside of us and to love ourselves and to start that journey. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, well, the scale. You know, I don't know how often someone should weigh themselves or if it's healthy if they have a eating disorder, even if they don't, if it's leading to that. What are your thoughts on the, the frequency and how many times they have to do it or should they do it?
It's a great question. I don't believe in shoulds. So I don't think there's ever a time you have to do anything or should,
Hmm.
meaning in terms of like weighing yourself. Okay. So my thought process gears towards getting to the period of why are you doing it? So many people weigh themselves every day so they can berate themselves, applaud themselves when they do good, berate themselves when they do bad. Now, Beachbody, old Beachbody kind of changed that with a diet that you weigh yourself every day so you know what the food did in your body. But the thing is that most people aren't viewing that as the food, they're viewing that as themselves. You
Yeah.
cannot gain 4 pounds in a day. It's really almost impossible. Okay. But yet the scale can change 4 pounds in the day based on food, drink, etc. So my encouragement to anybody that chooses to weigh themselves, the way I tell them is that you weigh yourself one time a week,
Mhm.
the same day of the week in the exact same circumstances. So if you choose Wednesday, on Wednesday, after I go to the bathroom, once I get naked, before I get into the shower, boom, that's your plan. If you deviate in any way, you must say, I'm not in my house, I'm on somebody else's scale. I'm wearing clothes. I didn't go to the bathroom. I didn't get enough sleep, right? I only slept an hour or two. I went out last night and drank until 2 a.m. I don't know, whatever you want to note on this thing. Okay. Any deviance from the normal plan, you have to write on there. Okay. And then you weigh yourself.
Mhm.
And you can, if you're a woman, you cannot compare yourself weekly. You can only compare yourself every month. So week 1 week to week 5 week, week 2 week to week
Mhm.
6 week, week 7 or week 3 week to week 7, because women are cyclical.
Mhm.
We can only compare every 28 days because every 28 days our body changes. Okay. So if I'm on day 1 of my new cycle and I choose to weigh myself and I compare it to the next week on day 8, I am looking at two different numbers based on the hormones in a woman's body. And so we dictate it too much on week to week or day by day or all those things when women aren't supposed to weigh the same thing every day. We're not supposed to because our bodies are changing. We're building up to potentially have a baby. Oh, we haven't had a baby, so now we're breaking it down.
Mhm.
Okay. It's a completely different thing than a man who isn't doing that. Men can sometimes see every 3 months a hiccup where things go up a little bit before they come back down because their hormones do cycle, just not as regularly as women. So
Mhm.
that's really how I tell people. And I do get them to understand why they're weighing themselves. Some people like to weigh themselves as a form of progress, but I really make sure that that's coming from a piece of that my self-worth is not dictated by the number on the scale, because most people who weigh themselves, especially consistently, are basing their self-worth on that number.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I personally don't like the scale. I've once in a while when I was pregnant, I'd get weighed. Even then, I'm like, nope. After it, I'm like, nope, because I know my body. I know when I've gained weight. I just know from the clothes, from how my body changes. I just know, and it's knowing, the knowing and listening to the body. I want to talk about gut health with you because we talked about the digestive code. Um, I guess that, yeah, that could be unhealthy gut health. How can we know when our gut is unhealthy or when it's healthy?
I would tell you that's based on bloating, fatigue, bowel movements.
Hmm.
If you have some sort of autoimmune disease that got diagnosed later, if you really like fatigue, like I'm tired, like so many women are just like, I'm tired. I don't know why I'm tired. It's most likely internally your gut.
Hmm.
Something is not processing right. And no, it doesn't mean you have to take hormones or find pills or a whole bunch of supplements. It just has to be regulated. But I'd really say for women, it's really that like fatigue, tiredness, extreme hunger, extreme thirst, lack of both of those, irregular bowel movements, bloating, um, intestinal cramping, intestinal pain, um, signs of malnourishment in like your stool and things like that. There's lots.
Hmm.
I mean, gut health is imperative. Even if you're not thinking clearly, that can be based on gut health.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Are you also into fitness? What type of fitness are you in?
Yeah, so I'm a personal trainer as well, right? And truthfully, I love every kind of fitness. I'm not a Zumba person or a dance person because I was never really taught how to be that coordinated when I was little. And so I look kind of foolish now. Somebody told me once I was like a boxy type dancer. And I was like, probably true because I don't know. And I'm just disconnected in that way. But I could run a marathon. No, I can't. I've never run a marathon. I can. I just have never chosen to. I like, personally for myself, I really like to do a combination of lots of things: yoga, HIIT training, weights, and Pilates are my go-to right now. But to each his own. So one of the things I do in the program is to help you find out what is your right exercise because we're all different. I also love to pole dance, but I left my pole dancing, my pole in the States when we left. So it is something that I'd like to do again. But I know a lot of women that that's their form of exercise. It's their way to connect to themselves, to their body, and get fit in the process. And that can be the thing. It's based on you, and your digestion code can help you find that. Some people really need a lot of heavy exercise, some people don't. It just depends on what your body's really asking you.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it depends where in the world. There might be some negative things people say when it comes to pole dancing. What would you say to those people? Because you just said it's a form of exercise. Maybe people see it differently. What are your thoughts?
I think that's again a little bit how you were raised, right? Okay. My sister, who died in 2016, she was a stripper for many years. And I started to take pole dancing, I want to say in like 2011. And she was one of my favorite people to talk to because I was like, I can do that and you can't. Like, she wasn't taught those things. That's what's funny about it. We have this negative connotation with it in our head, but that's not what they were taught when they were there. That's not at all. Like, pole dancing as a sport is completely different than the negative connotations that we hold in our head.
Hmm.
And so I would truthfully say, to anybody with that, try it once. You have no idea how much connected you have be in your body and how sensual it is for yourself. Just even there's a woman, her name is called, I think it's Midlife Muse on Amanda Hansen's, Dr. Amanda Hansen is her name. She's on Instagram and she actually talks about it. She does pole dancing. She's never really even shown her husband. It's just a way for her to connect to herself and her body. And that's her
Yeah,
way of doing things. So
yeah, yeah. As you were sharing it, I just feel a sense of connection to the feminine power of expressing the self and the movements, dancing in the pool.
exactly. Yeah. And that's really what it was. I mean, I remember so much because I was so strong. I could do all the things like climb up it and flip myself upside down and do things, but it was graceful moves. I hated them. Like, I hate these graceful moves and point your toes and like do
Yeah,
this weird thing with your body. It's like, I don't get it,
yeah.
still learning it. But that's why I love it because it's helping me to do both, to be in a place where I can feel nourished and great because I'm doing the thing with the strength, but also really tap into that sensual side of really connecting to me and my body and understanding it. And those small things can really help you to know something's off, right? Something is off. I need something different.
Yeah, yeah. My next question, let's connect it to digestion again. What happens when someone swallow?
That's a great question. So it's all dependent on you.
Mhm.
So many people don't realize that the host does get to influence. Yes, the gut does most of the work, right? But the host influences. So this really came from when I was working with somebody that kind of helps with branding and marketing and things like that, that if you eat a Starburst, let me correlate this, okay? Because I think most people know, I know Skittles is everywhere. I think Starburst is everywhere, but let's say Skittles, okay? So I have a bowl of Skittles that's equal to 15 grams of sugar, and I have a bowl of oranges that's equal to 15 grams of sugar. Most people would say which one's healthier?
Mm.
The oranges, right? So I've got the oranges that are healthier versus the Skittles.
Mhm.
Okay. Both of them are equal in grams of sugar. To my body, once I consume this, whether I'm eating the Skittles or the oranges, my body knows no difference. It
Mhm.
doesn't know that this sugar came from Skittles and this sugar came from oranges. Once it's on the inside of my bloodstream, it's the same exact sugar. It does the same exact process. Now, you take those same two foods, And the person who knows the Skittles were against their diets, but the fruit was always allowed. When they consume this food, they eat this food knowing I am eating a bad food, depending on how much they eat of it. And if they overeat and binge, now they induce more shame, they induce more guilt. The rise in cortisol, the stress hormones, things like that, it will destroy how you digest. It'll destroy how you process. It will make those Skittles do exactly what you thought they would do, cause you to gain weight. But neither one of them are different. It's the same 15-gram portion.
Mhm.
Your body knows no different. It's just you give this a connotation. So one of the things I teach in my programs is that food is not good or bad. It's not healthy or unhealthy. It contains more nutrition and less nutrition. That's it. That's what we're really talking about. The Skittles contains less nutrition than the oranges. We understand that. The oranges has fiber, the oranges has water, the oranges has vitamins, it has minerals, things that aren't contained in the Skittles. The
Mhm.
Skittles are really purely just sugar and maybe some vitamin C. I don't know. I haven't read a Skittles container in a while to know if they have vitamin C in them or not,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
really it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I'm learning, but over time I did struggle with reading labels of foods because you go to the groceries, natural sugar, artificial sugar. I don't know if there's mislabeling, when it comes to eating proper food or healthy, but again, it's listening to your inner voice and making decisions that works for you.
Exactly. And most labels can only mislabel up to zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.9 wrong.
Mm,
So most of the time you're within a ballpark. That's really by law what they have to do. And if not, as long as it's a food and not a supplement, it is reviewed regularly to make sure that it's in code.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to share?
No, that was fabulous. I was like, oh wow, we're going like all over the world, like,
Yeah.
my childhood, religion, and bringing in it. And it's what's funny is it's all combined. And that's why I love what I do because to the woman out there who is controlling her world through her body, this is what's right for you. And it has taken me a while to accept that because so many people are like, oh, you're a weight loss coach. No, I'm not. It is a subject. It is a side effect.
Mhm.
This is truthfully you understanding the inside of your body, what is happening. The weight loss becomes a side effect, and it's a beautiful side effect because you wind up having to do no work. There's no counting, no portion control, no meal planning, all the things that we think we have to do. When you can get this in alignment, it winds up being no work. Just like how you said, because it becomes your identity,
Yeah.
and that's a key.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you was fabulous. I loved it all.
Awesome. Well, I have two questions for you as we wrap up. The first one
Okay.
is, what is the meaning of life for you?
Oh, that's a loaded question. To me, my soul is on a journey to really help the world around me.
Mhm.
And I'm doing that right now through digestion codes, and it could shift again and shift again. But it's to help people really understand that our body is a huge piece of us, but it's not our identifier. And when we release that the weight and the health has to identify you, you can be somewhere else. And I truthfully believe that the meaning of life is really to serve your purpose, your place. Your soul is on a journey. God gave you a journey. God gave you a reason to be here, and you're here for that. And you get to have as much fun. I used to be constantly looking for the destination, and now I'm really enjoying the ride of like, oh, wow, that was cool to figure out. And like, oh, that was amazing to learn. And I have two small children, and it's absolutely awesome when all of a sudden something just clicks and it's like, dang, they got it, like they figured it out. And that's amazing because they had it all along, right? They had it all along. They just didn't know it until they knew it. And now you can't unknow it. And that's fabulous. And
Yeah.
that's what I think I love the most about the journey.
Yeah. Well, nailed it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. My last question for you, where can people find you, work with you, and connect?
Yeah, that's a great question. My top place right now is YouTube. I'm Leslie Urbas on YouTube. I'm sure you'll probably link that as well. But then the other two places I hang out the most are Instagram or Facebook, and I'm Leslie Urbas on those. Just happen to have the word Fiala I'm probably going to change that very shortly on my Facebook profile. Fiala is my maiden name. So Leslie Fiala Urbas on that platform. But yeah, I also have I've got lots of free handouts. I've got a book on digestion codes, a masterclass on it, and all the good stuff. And the first 3 steps to uncovering your code that you can kind of look up and see. So that way you can begin your journey of truthfully understanding your body on the inside.
Awesome. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.